Welcome, everyone. This is Our Travel Experiences. I'm your host, Kyle Rasmussen, and today I have with me Kris. Kris, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Kyle. How are you?
Doing all right. I am super excited to talk about some of your travel experiences. It looks like you've hiked in some beautiful places, especially on the East Coast. So, should be a fun conversation.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to it.
Wow, awesome. So just kind of starting off, tell the listeners a little bit of background on you and how you got into sharing East Coast hiking.
Well, let's see. I could probably go on forever about the evolution of, my social media and all of that fun stuff, but well, I guess I'll go into the background. So I actually started off sharing mostly about fitness. So I kind of started off on social media as like a health and fitness person. And then I realized that doesn't really, quite line up with exactly what I want to be sharing about. Just something just didn't feel quite right, I guess. So it took me a little bit to, really kind of discover what my niche was and, what really made me the most happy to share
Mhm.
about. So, kind of started sharing about my travels and things like that. And, again, it was really more for, my family and friends and things like that. And, it took me a bit to, I guess, kind of get into the idea of, building an audience,
Mhm.
and taking it more in that direction. So, I think once I discovered, that I really had a passion for sharing specifically about, being outdoors. And again, of course, that still involves travel too, because when I
Mhm.
travel, I'm traveling to have those outdoor adventures and outdoor experiences. So yeah, it just kind of evolved and shifted over time until I really felt like, I was sharing exactly, what I wanted to be sharing. And I just kind of realized too that there are a lot of people out there, and I mean this isn't a bad thing. I mean, the Western US is absolutely beautiful, but it seemed
Mhm.
to me like it got so much of the, what's the word I'm looking for? It just kind of takes the stage all the time.
Yeah.
And, I've lived in the East my entire life. And, growing up, I think I took it for granted. I always just thought, oh, I can't wait to go out West. I just want to be out West. I want to travel out West. I want to move out there. And I just, kind of
Mhm.
had this mentality where I overlooked, a lot of the beauty and, outdoor experiences that were right around me. So, that really became a big, part of my social media presence. And what I enjoy doing is really sharing that with other people. That I think the East Coast is very underrated and often overlooked. And there's a lot of beauty there that's worth paying attention to.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I know since I've been following you on Instagram, I've been really shocked and pleasantly surprised how much hiking there is on the East
That's
Coast.
awesome. That's like music to my ears.
Yeah, it was it's been fun to see your posts because as someone who's grown up in the Western US, I mean, I grew up
Mhm.
in Washington State where we have some amazing hiking.
Yep.
I've always thought about West Coast hiking and never really thought about
Right.
the East Coast. I've always thought it's so flat and everything out there
Right.
compared to the West. But you've shown me a lot of cool places that I really want to go check out now.
Well, that's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. You're so right, though. I mean, it definitely does get that stereotype of, well, and I've recently said that, everyone loves to refer to the mountains in the East as hills. And it just feels like a personal insult, to me. They're still mountains and they're still beautiful, but it's not a comparison game is kind of my whole point. There's plenty of beauty even if it looks different to
Hmm.
enjoy. Plenty of great hiking to enjoy. It's not going to look like Utah or, Washington or Oregon or Colorado, but that doesn't mean it's not beautiful. And it, doesn't have plenty of things to enjoy just in its own way.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's a little bit different landscape, but it's got its own beauty to it.
Exactly. Yeah. And there are definitely some crazy looking landscapes too.
I know. I'm right now. I'm looking at your ultimate Virginia summer adventure bucket list here.
Oh yeah.
There's some beautiful pictures on here.
Thank
Stuff that
you.
you don't really see um, out here in the Western U.S. I would say too.
Yeah.
We don't have the like what do you call those? Like the little falls. I'm looking at what is this one? The first one, Prince William National Forest Park. Like
Oh yeah.
the pictures you have on there, like that's not something you'd really see a lot of out here in the West.
Yep.
Um,
There are definitely some pretty unique places. That's something that I love to do too, is really try to find the most unique places that, people have probably never heard of.
yeah, yeah, definitely. What's been some of your favorite hikes recently?
Oh goodness. So recently I have been, so I'm based in Virginia. I'm in Northern Virginia. And we are, well, probably about an hour and a half from West Virginia. So I have
Okay.
spent a lot of this summer actually. Usually in the summer, what I do is, I try to stay local. I mean, of course, I love to travel. I love to take big trips when I have the opportunity, but I really
Mhm.
do enjoy just exploring where I live and the surrounding area and the East Coast as much as possible. So in the summer, I will usually stay local and try to do, like road trips and stuff like that to different areas of Virginia, to West Virginia. So this summer has been focused on a lot of West Virginia adventures. And I
Okay.
have just been having such a blast, exploring West Virginia and, just constantly discovering amazing places. Like I said, there are some absolutely crazy landscapes, like, that will honestly make you feel like you're in Hawaii or even in another country. I mean, it's just amazing, how many things and just constantly discovering there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So when you go on these hikes, how do you typically plan it out? Do you just kind of find a random place and say, I'm going to try this spot, or do you plan beforehand?
It really depends. So recently, and something that is also kind of core to, what I'm doing is working with local communities, local people, local brands. So whether it's, I like to actually work with, people who have Airbnbs or, unique properties in these areas. So, throughout Virginia, even into Pennsylvania, Maryland, like I said, West Virginia. So that's been great because it really gives me an opportunity to help them, get the word out about the unique, accommodation or place that they have. And then I also, benefit too because I get to have, this great adventure, this great trip experience and share it with my audience as well. So that is one of the ways this summer, mostly, that I've been, kind of figuring out where to go. I've been really able to connect, with a lot of people in the local area. Who have like some kind of unique property or something like that. And I've been doing stays and partnerships with them. So I think this summer I actually did. I just came back from one in West Virginia. No one probably has any idea where this is, but it's the Cabins, West Virginia area where there's the chimney top hike that I post about a lot. Seneca Rocks, Dolly Sods. I did a stay there last weekend, and then last month I actually did, I worked with the cabin, the property that is right in the Dolly Sods wilderness area. So I definitely talked to the owners of those properties, things like that. And then I'm a big fan of just kind of like scouring all trails too, to
Mhm. Yeah, that's a
and
good
everything
resource.
I can. Yeah. And, I love to look for, I like to do the popular hikes, of course, but I really like to scour for the ones that, no one's really talking about or
Hmm.
has done.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like how did you get to this point where you can do these partnerships with these Airbnbs and things like that? Because you got, I think I just saw 34,000 plus followers on Instagram. So kind of
Yeah.
tell me how you got to that point.
Yeah. I've actually grown quite a bit recently. I think Really, I would say a big part of it is just, I mean, so for me, it's it's definitely sharing posts consistently, all of that, trying to, help give people information, creating posts that, really, I don't want to say this because it sounds so cliche, but, I try to provide people that value, right? So it's not
Mhm.
just, the inspiration to get out and, explore these places, but I also try to, give the most helpful information that I can. And then I think a big piece for me, and, probably a lot of other creators out there as well, is to, really focus on that community aspect of it, right? So,
Mhm.
actually developing relationships, with the people that, you're engaging with on social media, really trying to reach the right audience, so for
Mhm.
me, I think that definitely took some time. I hate the idea that you have to, everyone says that you have to be super specific in your niche and really niche down, to be successful and to find your audience and to grow and all of that. And, I really just didn't want to be boxed in. I didn't want to feel like, oh, I can only post about, one thing or one area.
Yeah.
Um, it's hard, right? I wanted to post about all of my travels and, all the places I was going and hiking and, what I was doing. But, I do think that a really key piece of it for me was to make sure that I was posting to the majority of my audience. So once I really started to reach the right people, and by the right people, I really mean local people, people who are in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, or who are on the East Coast.
Mhm.
The people that, like I said, my message is really conveying, how underrated the East Coast is and how much there actually is to do that people might not think of. And once I started reaching those people, then things just really started to kind of snowball. Um, I
Mhm.
really started to see growth. I really started to see, like, those DMs coming into my inbox, like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for sharing this. I just moved to Virginia, or I had no idea that there was all this great stuff here. And now I'm going to go find it. And so I really just started leaning into that, um,
Mhm.
making sure that, everything I posted was kind of, consistent. And, that's not to say that I'm completely boxed into just, posting about this area and posting about the East Coast. But, there's then also, okay, well, it's great to, the majority of my account is really focused on, kind of that local aspect and discovering what's
Yeah.
around you. But there's still a piece of it that is, if I get the opportunity to take a bigger trip or, travel somewhere farther, I'm still going to be sharing that as well. And, I think that that still fits
Mhm.
into, what I'm ultimately working towards. So yeah, I would say it's a lot of consistency. Like I said, really making sure that I'm providing value to, the people who are, who are supporting me and engaging with me, um, and just really nurturing those relationships. And everything kind of started to come naturally after that. And I really do try to, when I do work with properties and I do collaborations, I really try to make sure that I do as great of a job as I can at
Mhm.
really showcasing, that area or that, accommodation or whatever it is, really what it has to offer. But, I also like to get into, the more personal aspects of it too. So it's not just like, oh, look at this cool place, or oh, look at this cool cabin, or, whatever. Like I really try to get deeper than that,
Yeah.
into, like, kind of the background and, it's just all of that, sort of information that kind of makes it more personal.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, whatever you're doing, it's definitely working. And I think
Well,
you
thank
might,
you.
yeah, I think you might be attracting maybe an unintended audience like myself, who, is a West Coaster
For
that
sure.
hasn't thought about it at all. And now I'm like, oh, wow,
That's
like
awesome.
next time I'm on the East Coast, I got to go hike.
Right? See, yeah, exactly. There's that
Uh,
piece of it too, and that's awesome. I love that.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I wanted to ask you, I know when we were setting this up yesterday and everything, you posted that picture of the sunrise. Where was that taken at?
Oh yeah, so that was Dolly Sod's wilderness
Okay.
area.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
That is supposedly, I've heard people say that it's the best place in West Virginia to watch the sunrise. Although I've also heard it called the best place in the US to watch the sunrise. And I'm sure there will be
Okay.
plenty of people who will disagree with that.
Uh, well,
That's a little
I
bit
would
of a
say,
bold statement.
yeah, I would say based on your post, it makes a strong case at least.
I think so. I mean, yeah, it is just absolutely breathtaking. And, something that I find fascinating about Dolly Sods is that it's the landscapes are just so different, and like the
Mhm.
vegetation and all of that. It's actually reminiscent of what you would find in like Northern Canada. So
Hmm.
it's a very, very unique spot. Just not even for the East Coast, but just for the US in general. It's very cool.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm definitely got to check that out now.
Yeah, I highly recommend.
So when you're doing these hikes and going on these trips, are you just going by yourself or do you have someone there with you?
So I actually, for the most part, hike and travel with my husband. He
Okay.
does not appear very often on my social media, and that is mostly because he just prefers privacy, and
Hmm.
I respect that. So, he is a very big part in my social media, and the
Yeah.
photos and the videos and all of that stuff. He just prefers, not to be on there. So, that's kind
Mhm.
of the way it works. I just try to respect
Take
his
the pictures,
privacy as
right?
much as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, someone's got to take the pictures too.
Right? Yeah. I mean, and I will be the first one to admit that I do not often, if I'm in the picture or the video, then it is not me taking it. I'm not
Yeah.
out there with the tripod. Like, I'm not even going to
Okay.
pretend for a second that I'm, good at doing all that by myself.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like with your post like that would take so much work if it was just you out there.
It would, and I really admire the people who do that themselves, because I know there are quite a few, of
Mhm.
solo hikers and solo travelers, and huge props to them for being able to do all of that themselves.
Yeah, definitely. So, what's been like one of the biggest hikes you've done?
Oh goodness, let's see. So, hmm, I'm thinking recently. Well, it's not really a big hike, but it was kind of on my bucket list for a while. I think last year. We went out to southern Utah and we did Zion and Bryce. And a lot of the surrounding area. And so Angel's Landing and then the
Hmm.
Narrows had been on my bucket list forever. And that hike just like knocked my socks off, for lack of a better word. It's definitely not the biggest hike in terms of difficulty or anything like that,
Hmm.
but it was just an incredible, incredible hike that felt so cool to finally check off my bucket list.
Yeah, yeah, Utah is a beautiful place, especially for any sort of hiking.
Oh my gosh, it really is. Yeah. And then I think the other one that, I would say the other area that kind of blew us away too was Hawaii. We did some hiking on Oahu, and that
Okay.
was just
Wow.
incredible as well.
Yeah, that's got to be a different landscape to hike in too.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah. Hiking along those ridges and then having the view of the ocean was just incredible.
Where did you hike there in on Oahu?
I forget the name of the trail, to be honest.
I'm looking at Google Maps as we're going along. It's it's fun to look at all these different places. Besides Hawaii, has there been any other like really cool places where you've gotten a hike or any international places?
Have I hiked internationally? I don't know that I have. I actually haven't been international in a while, other than Mexico, but I was not hiking. I was not hiking in Mexico. Mm, No, not yet. I think all the international hiking is still on my bucket list.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where would be like a bucket list place to go hike internationally?
Oh gosh, where wouldn't? I definitely have like Switzerland, Austria,
Okay.
Italy, all of those places on my
That
bucket list.
that'd be insane to just hike through the Alps for a while.
Yes, it really would.
That would be some real time hiking.
Oh yeah. That's probably top for me, but I mean, I would love to hike in Bali. I don't even know, everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere is
Uh,
on the list, right?
yeah, right. That's what people say, or when people ask me, where do you want to go? I'm like, well, everywhere. I
hmm
can't
And
just
that's
pick one.
exactly. I know, and then I want to go back to all the places I've already been to because there's still
Hmm.
more things that I'd like to do. So,
Yeah. What's like the one hike where you're like, I would do this one over and over again?
well, I do have a hike like that in West Virginia, and that is North Fork Mountain or Chimney Top. That's the one that I was kind of referring to with the
Hmm.
crazy landscapes that will just make you feel like you're in another country, not even in the United States. The ridge line is just crazy. There's, exposed cliff, and it's just really cool. It's definitely not something you would expect to see
Hmm.
on the East Coast. So that's one for me. Also, I think this past winter, we did some hiking near Asheville, North Carolina, and Grandfather Mountain was another, I guess, favorite that just really
Okay.
surprised me in the best way. It's just a really cool hike. It's very technical. So I don't know if you saw it on my Instagram, but that's the one. It has like ladders and rope climbs and
Oh wow.
just all
Okay.
kinds of, yeah, exactly. Again, another one that's really unique, I think.
Huh.
And then
Yeah.
I would
Okay.
also, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. There's the one that I would add to that, and this one kind of has a story to it too. But when we
Okay.
were in the Grand Tetons well, actually, when we were in Grand Teton National Park,
Hmm.
sorry, I know Grand Tetons is not accurate. Grand Teton National Park. We went in. We went near the end of May, so there was still quite a bit of snow.
Yeah.
And Delta Lake had been on my bucket list also for a very long time. And so the first hikes that we attempted when we got there, but there was probably 3 to 4 feet of snow
Wow.
at
Yeah.
higher elevations. And the
Hmm.
trail was completely covered. There was no trace of a trail whatsoever. Um, we were post holing like up past our knees. It was just absolutely
Jeez.
crazy. Yeah, and we miraculously managed to get to have you hiked to Delta Lake before?
I have not. I've not gotten to explore the Grand Teton National Park.
Okay. So you come up to kind of this final ascent where it looks like it's just over the hill, but actually it's a pretty steep ascent and you kind of come up and go over top of like the last bit of mountain, and then the lake is kind of nestled in at the top, and we
Hmm.
could see where we needed to go, and the lake would be just on the other side, but we're so exhausted by that point that we just knew that we couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So we ended up having to turn around, and we were so devastated. Because we
Yeah.
could see where the end was. We could see where the lake would be, but I mean, also
Mhm.
the lake was still completely frozen over. So
Oh
it's not
wow.
like we would get to see that, yeah, beautiful milky blue water that you see in all the pictures anyway.
Mhm.
But
Yeah. That's
I have
that's one of the struggles of, especially out here in the U in the West, where the elevation is a lot higher. Is you're gonna the amount of time that you have to hike is pretty short, actually.
yeah.
Um, I know I'm personally looking at doing the North Cascades
Oh,
in the
okay.
next couple weeks, and I'm like, I pretty much got one chance to get up there this year
Yeah.
because It's like a basically like a month and a half window that you can hike up there.
Yeah, I know. It's
Um,
true.
yeah, I know they just opened like at the beginning of August. They opened like one of the main roads, but then it'll get shut down again in October probably. So
Gosh.
it's wild. Um,
Wow.
the snow definitely plays a factor.
Yeah, it does.
But yeah, there's just so many beautiful areas though. I'm gonna have to check out
Mhm.
the Grand Teton now too.
Yeah, definitely
There's,
recommend that.
there's so many places. It's hard to to pick one and to try to get them all in.
It is, I know. Yeah, we were trying to decide too because, we were planning a trip. We're heading to Glacier National Park in a few weeks also. And we're definitely looking forward to that, but it was difficult to to try to make a decision of where we wanted to go. We actually were planning on going to Washington and doing the three parks there, and then we
Mhm.
actually got an opportunity to collaborate with a glamping property in Glacier.
Oh,
And
cool.
so that kind of, yeah, swayed our decision.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah,
Glacier is beautiful, so that would be a ton of fun.
I can't wait. We'll definitely take any and all recommendations too,
Yeah, yeah, you'll definitely have to send them my way.
for sure.
Um, well, so with your with your social media too and your website,
Mhm.
um, do you like make a blog post every week, every month, or how do you kind of run your website and your social media?
That is a great question. And this is actually something that I was just thinking about now that Instagram has done this like subscription feature where you
Oh
can
yeah, okay.
subscribe to people, yeah, for more in-depth content. I
Mhm.
was just saying I need to kind of explain to my audience the situation here, which basically is all the content that I create and what I put out right now is all that I really have time to
Yeah,
create. So there
yeah.
really isn't ever going to be anything more in depth that people could, pay to subscribe to. But
Hmm.
the way that I kind of do it right now, so I actually have a full-time job. So I just do, social media, all of this stuff, on the side. It's kind of my passion project, I
Hmm.
guess you could say. And it's a lot to keep up with. So with
Yeah.
social media, it's not just Instagram, but there's TikTok and Pinterest and all these other
Hmm.
things. So, I try to be present on all of those, but I definitely do better at some times than other times. And with blogging and my website, I would love to be able to be more consistent. There are times, depending on how busy work is, where I can, write a blog post once a week or once every 2 weeks, and then there are
Hmm.
periods where I don't, post anything for months, and that's that's kind of where I'm at right now. I had every intention of getting my blog post on the Dolly Sods out, right after I went on the trip, and I
Hmm.
have it all drafted and all of that, but just haven't had the time to get to it. So yeah, it's probably been about a month since I published anything on my blog, which is not ideal, but just such is life.
Yeah, yeah. I totally understand. I mean, I got a full-time job too, and trying to keep up with the social media. I mean, that's a full-time job in itself.
It seriously is. It's crazy. I know. I found that I really, really have to be intentional with my time. And it's difficult because, when, like I said, the community aspect of it is huge for me. And, the
Mhm.
people who actually take the time to support me and support my content, I want to, give back to those
Yeah,
people. I want to be responsive to those people, but it's so easy to get sucked in. I could spend hours on there replying to every comment and DM and
yeah,
everything. And it's hard to pull myself away. Like, okay, I have to actually go work now.
yeah. I totally understand that. Um, so what? This is really shifting gears here, but what? For someone that's gonna hike on the East Coast, especially in Virginia, West Virginia,
Hmm.
what like essential advice would you have or recommendations would you have for people?
Hmm. I feel like the recommendations that I probably have would be, I don't want to say universal, but probably so. This would probably apply to anywhere, that you're hiking.
Hmm.
But I mean, okay, so I'll have a few kind of general tips, and then I'll try to throw some maybe East Coast,
Okay.
Virginia, West Virginia specific ones in there. Um, so just the general things, I don't think are going to be a surprise to anyone, but obviously leave no trace, huge.
Mhm.
So anyone who's outdoors recreating, should be familiar with the principles of leave no trace and how to,
Yes.
minimize impact as much as possible. Um,
Nothing annoys me more than people leaving their trash.
yes, just all of it. I mean, I just posted today, actually, one of the trails that we recently hiked over the weekend. There was toilet paper right in the middle of the trail. And
Jeez.
I just said, okay, there's also a bathroom at the trailhead, so it's really difficult to understand why you're leaving toilet paper in the middle of a trail on a 3-mile hike when there's a bathroom at the
Oh
trail.
wow,
Yeah.
that's terrible.
Yes, it's like, as I am absolutely all for people getting out and enjoying the outdoors. That's why I do what I do, but not
Mhm.
if they can't do so responsibly. So that's something
Yeah.
that's huge for me, is making sure people really know, how to be responsible when they're out there.
Hmm.
So that's huge. And I also think too, part of that is being prepared. Being prepared for the conditions, the terrain, the wildlife, all of it. So I would definitely say too, and again, this is, universal advice. It's really important to research the area that you're going to be in, the terrain that you're going to be dealing with, what potential wildlife there is that you need to be prepared for, so that what you're doing. And again, this is where it's completely different if you're going to be hiking out west where there are grizzlies, right, than if you're
Yeah.
on the East Coast where those definitely don't exist. But there's some wildlife in the east that would surprise people. I mean, I didn't know until a couple of years ago, that there were rattlesnakes
Mm.
in the eastern US, but there absolutely are.
Okay.
And so yeah.
Good to know.
They look different, yeah, but
Hmm.
absolutely. I was, walking on a not well-traveled trail, and I almost stepped right on one until
Good to know.
until it
Sounds
rattled
good.
at me. So yes, it is definitely important to, even if you think you know what to expect, you might not. So,
Hmm.
and I'm sure how you should respond if you come upon a grizzly bear, and how you come upon a black bear are not the same. So
Yep.
it's very
Definitely different.
important. Yeah, it is very important to know how you should respond, in any kind of situation. So
Hmm.
I would definitely say that too. And also, the 10 essentials, making sure that you have everything you need with you, just being smart, about making sure that you understand what some things that I like to do. Navigation is huge, and
Yeah.
making sure that you have, a system to not get lost.
Hmm.
But really being familiar with not just the general area that you're going to be hiking in, but also the trail and the route. Obviously, it's great to have all trails or something that you can, be looking at. But, obviously have to say that you should never just rely on your phone, because if it dies, then you're screwed.
Yeah, you're in trouble.
So, and I mean, this also depends too. I mean, I typically prefer to day hike.
Hmm.
So how I would prepare for a day hike is not the same as, how someone should prepare for a 3-day backpacking trip. So
Yeah.
again, like, the biggest advice would just be to research and prepare. But I would say for like the Eastern US, there are probably some differences, some consistent differences, I would say, in terms of terrain. So, and you can feel free to correct me if this is not true, but for the most part, I think that our trails tend to be, for the most part, our trails are not open. Like, they're usually in the woods, like very forested. We're not
Mhm.
out in like wide open spaces, like a lot of hikes I've done in like Colorado or
Yeah.
um so that is definitely one thing to consider, especially in terms of safety. So I
Mhm.
personally am not, and there's not to say that there's anything wrong with it, but I just personally don't solo hike very often unless it is somewhere that is very well traveled. it definitely feels less comfortable to me, to kind of be like out in the middle of the woods
Hmm.
on a
Yeah,
trail.
I think that's important. I mean, if people do go by themselves, I think it's always important to tell someone like
For
where you're
sure.
going, how long
Yes,
you plan to be gone.
absolutely. Yeah,
Um,
I agree. Yeah, and that goes for not even just the trail itself,
yeah.
also just the area. I mean, there are a lot of,
Mhm.
very rural, remote areas, and I'm sure this is not just true for the eastern US, but there's a lot of, rural, not very inhabited areas where, you just
Mhm.
want to be aware of your surroundings and make sure that you have a plan if something happens, if you break
Yeah,
down in the middle of nowhere, you don't have cell service, like all of that.
yeah, yeah,
All of that
definitely.
not fun stuff.
It doesn't happen often, but bad things do happen, so it's always good to be prepared.
For sure. Yeah. And then I think with our terrain too, I mean, to me, I think we have much more like rocky, very uneven,
Mhm.
just difficult terrain. So I don't know, I'm obviously not saying that that doesn't exist in the West, but to that end, I think, footwear, all of that kind of stuff, it's important to, at least for me, my ankles are shot because I played soccer my whole life. I've sprained them several times. So I cannot hike without boots that have ankle support because the second I step on a rock and my
Yeah,
ankle bends one way, it's just going that way.
yeah, no,
It's
I
not
good
bouncing back.
footwear. Yeah, good footwear is definitely important. You can
Yeah,
you can turn a really, nice day into a really unpleasant day by
for
not
sure.
having good footwear.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those rocky trails are just, they're a killer on your joints. It's a lot of impact and it's
Hmm.
tiring. So, if someone isn't necessarily expecting that, we very rarely have like nice, even like dirt or gravel trails. It's usually all rocks. So I think that, can, I don't know, maybe surprise some people or be a little bit more difficult. But also would say a marked difference. And again, this is, mostly in my experience and, other people I've talked to. But I think in the East, we just for some reason don't really believe in switchbacks. So we might have less elevation to gain overall, but you're going straight there.
You guys showed up. Yeah.
If it's
Uh,
2,000-mile incline, that's probably over 2 miles, and you're just going straight up the mountain. So,
Jeez. That's killer on both the way up and the way down.
oh yeah, yeah, exactly. I used to think that hiking poles were like, just for old people. No,
Okay.
hiking poles are your friend.
I'm I'm in the same way with hiking poles, so maybe I'll have to come out to the East Coast and try one without and
Yeah, for
see if
sure.
I like hiking poles then.
There you go.
That's funny. Those are great tips. I didn't think too much about like the landscape, but that makes sense.
Mm,
I mean, there are a lot of, I would say out west, there's not as much of like the rockiness
right.
per
That's been
se.
my experience, but again, I don't want to just, make generalizations based solely on my experience, but
Mhm. Yeah, it's much more, the dirt landscape and much more, I would say
yes,
sparse.
it's so
Uh,
much more
so,
pleasant on your knees.
yeah,
When we were in Grand Teton, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so nice." Like I could hike for miles and miles and miles on this lovely like
yeah.
nice even dirt trail.
Uh-huh. Yeah, especially the ones that are more well traveled type of trails, like those ones are usually going to be pretty nice.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep, exactly. Don't expect that out here.
uh, that's funny. Um, well, any other hikes that you want to share about, or ideas, or tips, or anything?
Um, let's see. Good question.
You've given a lot of great advice and shared some really cool places. I mean,
Thank you.
I'm really excited personally to go hike out on the East Coast.
Well, good. That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like I've just been doing a lot of rambling, but hopefully there's some things in there that that make sense or are helpful.
Yeah, no, it's been awesome. What I guess last question for
Yep.
you. Um, what would you say your favorite part of this hiking journey of sharing these hikes? What has been the best part of doing all of this?
So I would actually say two. Well, they're kind of related, but I would say there's two. And one is, absolutely, I've said this, I'm just repeating myself, but the community aspect of it.
Hmm.
Being able to meet all of these incredible people, and not just fellow content creators, but people who are local or nearby. Just being able to kind of open their eyes to all of the opportunities for adventure and exploring that there actually are. Right around, right outside of DC. It's
Hmm.
incredible how many places there actually are to see. But yeah, just being able to meet new people, connect with like-minded people. I've actually made some very, very great friends from Instagram. So people who are friends now in real life that I travel with and hike with all the time. So that's been a huge
That's
benefit.
awesome.
And then yeah, the other thing I would say too is just being able to make a real impact. So like I was saying, of course this is a side hobby for me. I have monetized my social media, to an extent. But I really try to draw that balance, where I'm being intentional about the people and places that I'm working with. And, I'm really making sure that, there are people, companies, brands are, that I feel are, in line with, my values, who are doing great things. If I will only work with places or people that I think, I can help them make an impact and make an impact myself. So
Yeah.
like I said, being able to show people, the unique accommodations or properties or experiences, and I'm helping, those local businesses, bring in new customers, get the word out, just to be able to support people who are doing amazing things, in the local area, and beyond. That's huge to me, and that definitely makes it all worth it.
That's awesome. I love that. You're giving back while you're also, pursuing your passions. That's
Right,
really cool.
exactly. And that's huge for me too. I think, for people to understand who do follow me, and support me is that, they're not just supporting me, they are supporting my ability to give back.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I love that. Well, Kris, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I know it's been a little bit of a struggle with the app here, but
That's okay.
we made it through it here.
We did.
So I appreciate it, and I appreciate you sharing all your stories. I know it's been fun for me and gotten me excited to go hike out on the East Coast.
Perfect.
Um, where really quick, where can people find your content?
So you can mostly find me on Instagram at Kris Maria Wanders, but my website is chrismariawanders.com. My TikTok is Kris Maria Wanders, so just Kris Maria Wanders.
Okay. Easy to remember.
Yes.
I to the listeners, you definitely got to go check out her Instagram page. The pictures are incredible. I really enjoyed it, and I always get excited when one of your posts pops up. So,
Aw, thank you.
yeah. Well, thanks again, and hopefully we can go do a hike on the East Coast sometime.
Yeah, please let me know when you're out here.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks again, Kris, and I'll see you somewhere around the world soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Kyle.
Yep. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey everybody, Kyle here. If you enjoyed today's show and want more, you can always check out every episode on Spotify and Anchor. And now you can also listen on YouTube. Links are in the description below. If you want to see my travel pictures as well as travel pictures from guests on the show, you can check them out on Instagram. The page is called Our Travel Experiences Podcast. And if you want to share your own pictures on the Instagram page and or be a guest on the podcast, you can message me via that Instagram page or email me at ourtravelexperiences@outlook.com. I would love to see your pictures and hear about your travel experiences. And if that isn't enough for you, make sure to check out my new show, From Around the World Fridays. Every Friday, I'm taking 5 to 10 minutes to discuss one specific travel topic, whether that be questions I get from listeners, sharing some souvenirs that I've bought over the years, or discussing one particular city or country that I've been to, and so much more. You'll be able to listen to that via Spotify and Anchor as well, and be able to see the video version, which I'm really excited about, on YouTube. So check it out. I promise you won't be disappointed. And thanks again for listening, and I will see you around the world soon.